We'll do it live. F it.
Lorenzo, how are you?
Hey, what's up?
An honor, sir.
Oh no, pleasure's mine. Thank you for having me.
I came across your podcast. That's all funny. I would say about a month ago, whenever WATP went over it, and I've been hooked, bro.
Yeah, it's strange how everyone seems to be taking a liking to it, and I can't understand why. It's just me being me, you know.
Well, don't start it yourself, you know. It's not easy to be liked on the internet, and whatever you're doing, it's resonating, and people like you.
I guess people like a person who doesn't like themselves or something.
I think your podcast should at least give you some sort of feeling of the word I'm looking for, some sort of achievement.
Yeah, I would say to me it just gives me something to do, you know, like a project, keep my mind off of other things.
How long have you been doing this? I noticed you've been on YouTube for 10 plus years, but how long has this podcast been going?
No, I just started it. I just had the 100th episode today, so it's been 100 days of just doing it every day. And yeah, YouTube. I mean, I've had an account forever. I tried to do some things, you know, years ago with gaming and stuff because I really like gaming, but I was like, yeah, everybody's doing that. So I
Hmm.
finally took up the, you know, I was in between jobs, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna start trying to actually put out this small, like bite-sized content of podcast because I don't know, I don't think anyone, I couldn't stomach hearing myself for an hour and a half. So I thought, huh, maybe 10 minutes a day, and that could be something people would like.
There are a lot of things you talk about that I relate to. You talk about pop culture, you talk about music, you talk about insecurities, you talk about, movies, you name it. So you kind of run the gambit. You do have a format that I know I'm going to get. I know I'm going to get an anecdote of like a past work experience, which I love. That might be my favorite part of your episodes. Like your
Oh yeah.
grocery stores, the Taco Bells, all that stuff.
I don't know. I wouldn't say I ever really planned to be that wacky of a life, but it just ended up being interesting like that, you know?
Yeah, I think part of it is just really life. Because I started out, 16, 17. I worked at Winn-Dixie and a Kroger. I worked at pizza places. I worked at McDonald's. So those experiences and those characters that you meet along that way are where growing up really happens. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and it's not the best
No,
advice anyone could get, but it is the advice we get, you know? It's the ones that stick with us.
absolutely. Like when I start hearing your stories, I start thinking of the characters I worked with in the past at these various places. I mean, I've met the craziest people. And this is where I grew up. I mean, you can only learn so much in your house, but when you go out at 18 into the real world and you come across these characters at grocery stores and fast food joints, and
And you don't even understand they have their own lives they're living those wacky lives, you know, and you're like, Jesus, this is, I don't know, you're only hearing a percentage of that life too of what they might be doing. It's insane.
I think my favorite story is the one you were talking about a white. I love the fact that um, I'm getting things from you referred to yourself as Mexican, so I'm not out on saying Mexican, right?
Yeah, I'm Mexican.
Okay, I don't know what's offensive or what's not these days, which
Yeah,
you also talk about.
yeah,
But
it's tricky.
it's a perspective you don't like. For me, I don't get very much, as far as creators go. I can get the black perspective, I could get the female perspective, I could get all these different perspectives, but to hear you talk about white people, so you're talking about the guy that you said had white rage, and I knew exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I looked up to that guy, man, that Kevin. He was so pissed off all the time. He would bang things. He'd get so angry and cuss, but it's like everyone just dealt with it, you know, because it's like, oh well, that's just Kevin being Kevin, you know. But I looked up to it like, man, I could really, I don't know why I just looked up to it. That anger, it inspired me, you know.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I like racial humor. I would suggest anyone who watches your show be aware that I would call it blue, if that makes sense. You know, I
How's
mean,
that?
comedians work blue. It means they're kind of adult, a little darker sometimes, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
But I like it because it's authentic. This guy I worked for once put his fist through a wall because someone made a mistake. I mean, it was the stuff I went through, even later in life in my career, like would never pass today.
No, it's scary that it didn't even seem that long ago. You know, how
No,
long ago was that?
10
10
years,
years
10
maybe?
years. The things that have happened along that way by leaders, quote unquote. I mean, I've been in conference rooms where I had guys just dog cussing people. I mean, it's just like
Hmm.
psychological abuse.
Dude, and that's normal to me. That's what I grew up with too, with that white dude pointing at people, but not with a finger, with his whole hand. He would
Yeah,
point with his whole hand like this at someone and cuss them out and crack up, make people cry. It was it was like, okay, let's just get back to work and get things done.
right. Yeah. You mentioned you played a sport, I think tennis. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
you
enjoy
said weren't
tennis.
didn't you say you were pretty good and you were actually beating a few folks and you'd see some rage? Do I remember that
Yeah,
correctly? Yeah.
yeah, they would. It's because you could tell they were the highbrow, like they actually had tennis coaches teaching them, and I was just some chunky kid in sweatpants, able to get one up on them, and yeah, they'd get real upset with that.
Even that story brings me back to that time period, like 30 years ago.
Hmm.
Sports coaches were brutal, man.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Brutal.
yeah.
I
They would make
mean,
us. They'd make you. I remember, when was it? Basketball. When I was in basketball for a little bit in high school, you'd run in the morning.
oh yeah.
You'd do weights. You'd go to class in your sweaty clothes,
Hmm.
not showering. I don't know. It was, yeah, that was tough. And yeah, they'd make you, what, even the band, the people doing band back then, they'd make them wear every bit of their gear in the sun,
Oh yeah.
go out there, and yeah, I don't know, things were just different back then, as far as how much you could push a person into this practicing, and everyone be okay with it. I don't know what it is now with everyone.
Basketball for me as well. I remember running lines. Remember doing that over and over
Hmm.
again until you feel like you're just gonna pass out and puke. Running
Hmm.
stairs. But I remember this. I mean, our coaches were like drill sergeants. It was like boot camp. I mean, I remember there was a defensive drill, and you had to keep your eye on the coach who was passing the ball, and you had to keep the eye on the person you were guarding. And if you weren't keeping two eyes in two different spots, he'd hum the ball at your head. And I remember he hit one of my teammates. This was in like ninth grade. Just hit him straight in the nose, bloodied his nose. No, there was no reports filed. You know, I mean, this was
Yeah,
a different time, man.
and I get it. It's weeding out the weak, but you have to understand too. Like, this wasn't like for championships or the world, the Olympics type of anything. This was just like ninth grade,
Yeah.
ninth grade basketball. There wasn't really much on the line to garner that much punishment. But I don't know. I feel like it bettered us now because we're so used to that punishment, that how easy things are now. It's like, oh no, it was way harder back when we did it. This is nothing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Do you think we're damaged from coming up in that era? Do you think that damaged us in any way?
Yeah, no, I would say it did make us stronger.
Hmm.
But I feel like we do, like, expect more from these kids nowadays, because we I mean, I wouldn't say we should pass on the trauma
Yeah.
if we did experience it, but it also made us tougher to where we're ready to just deal with anything, like we deal with the crap nowadays. It's like, oh, that was nothing. We were dealing with that as kids, let alone the traumas these people in college deal with, or in the real world when they're trying to get a job, and they deal with rejection, or
Yeah.
any sort of things that might let them down, not ready
Hmm.
for it.
It's interesting. I do like to think about Generation X and generations and their parenting styles and stuff. Me, I have four kids. Um, range in age, and it's like you do try to take the good from your parents and leave the bad. It's like each generation you're supposed to kind of like cure the stuff, whatever, one of the
Yeah, and
fucked up things.
you
You
hope
know?
to, and I don't ever want to use that. I don't have kids. I have my nieces, but I don't ever want to use that as an excuse. Like, well, I had to deal with it, so you have to deal with it. No,
Yes,
that's terrible.
right.
But also, I don't know. Like you saying you have 4 kids, and then I have my 2 nieces. I feel like I've said this, like one child is enough. I don't know if it's possible to spread your love between
It's a good
multiple
point.
children, and I don't mean to say
No,
like,
no, no. You will not offend me with anything you say.
yeah, I don't mean to say you spread your
No,
love like
I know
that.
exactly what you're saying
Yeah,
because trust me, I thought that. I
yeah,
had a son, and there was a large gap between I had the next one, and that entire time, that's what I thought. I was like, "There's no way."
yeah,
But believe it or not, it happens. I mean, well, I just love them all.
yeah.
And
Of course.
that's going to bring me to anxiety because that's something I really appreciate that you talk about, that I understand. And I think that's what brings some sort of real world into your podcast, and it's brave to talk about that kind of stuff. So what would you say your main anxiety is based on, or what's keeping you inside? Because that's what you say, you'd never leave the house. Is that right?
I mean, I lately it's been kind of bad where I don't like to leave the house,
Hmm.
but you could say it's that agoraphobia. I guess that's what they call it, where you don't want to leave. Uh, but I would say it's more, if I had to narrow down how I feel, it's that I feel trapped with no exit when I'm somewhere unfamiliar.
Do you feel that way in your space?
If it gets really bad, sometimes it does.
Hmm.
I know I've gotten to that length where I feel like, oh my God, even in my own home, I'm afraid of these irrational fears. But I know it's gotten pretty I mean, I can somewhat control it with the medication, but it's
Right.
mostly like going out somewhere unfamiliar, feeling like, oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna leave this place, and then trying to escape. It's a fear of being trapped. Like even last week, and I think I was telling you I had tried what was it? Some
Delta
Delta.
8.
Yeah, and that like brought
Oh
me
man.
all the way back to square one where I just felt,
I that was at a time when you said that before we were talking. But I probably wouldn't have interjected because you have to learn for yourself.
yeah, and I'm at a point where I'm willing to try anything to feel better,
Hmm.
or at least, yeah, just like, okay, rule this out. But I'm not, I don't know if doing something's gonna knock me all the way back down to square one, and that's kind of where it did. But those few hours were like, oh geez, nothing's real. My brain's trying to get out of my body.
Yeah, when you said
It's scary.
disassociation, I knew, I kind of felt like that could happen just based on what I've heard in your podcast and stuff.
Mhm.
It's really different how it affects people. Some people say there's certain strains that will give you a physical kind of feeling, relaxation or high. And then some people say there's one that's real mental, and that's what people with a certain, in my opinion, people with a certain chemistry or personality, it makes them paranoid,
Yeah,
disassociate, all that stuff. So yeah, it's a gamble with that stuff, man.
I rolled the dice and yeah, I didn't come out. And it could have been me. I could have taken a too big of a puff.
I don't think that's it. I'm sure there are people who would disagree with me on that. Do you feel more anxiety by not leaving or by leaving?
I would say by leaving, but then also it mostly comes at night. That really exaggerates it to a point where it's like, okay, wait, I just need to make it to the morning and I'll feel fine, and then we start this cycle over again.
Do you have insomnia?
No, not really.
That's good.
There'll be a couple of days where, yeah, I can't sleep, but it's
Hmm.
not anything. It's not an everyday issue.
People will say, "Oh, if you don't leave the house, you're like, Howard Hughes. You're crazy. You're scared. You're this. You're that." Every time we walk out of our door, we're taking our life in our own hands. The safest place you can be is in your house, your room, as far as percentage of chances of something going wrong, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I don't say that as a positive. I would rather be able to leave, but honestly, everything we can nowadays with remote things and everything,
Sure.
people order bringing us our food, we can kind of just stay home and
Anxiety definitely comes from having responsibility to other people, you know?
Mhm.
Um, that's where a lot of it comes from. Because we love them, you know? That's a good
it,
thing.
it does give me the strength, or at least from my nieces, to keep going. Not to ever feel that low where I'm like, oh, what's the point? You know what I mean?
I've had several times in my life where it felt rock bottom, where my mind was on a loop of doom, is what I call it, a loop of doom.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know what it is. It could be, as far as me, my fear of the dark, or maybe it's because I'm getting tired from being up the whole day, so that tired feeling might exaggerate the fears, you know?
As Cardiff Electra said the other day, we care about you, you know?
Yeah, it's scary. I'm not used to this much, like, caring, you know? It's foreign to me. That's just from having my, parents or whatever, of like, ah, get over it, you know what I mean?
Sure. And, you're getting a lot of love from the haters and the trolls, and if you could do that,
No, it is strange. I thought definitely someone would be negative somewhere, and no, everybody's positive. It's, again, it's foreign to me.
and it's interesting how the YouTube algorithm works because if WATP never did the 10 minutes or 15 minutes on you, I can't remember what it was. I don't know if you would have ever popped up on my radar.
That's what a lot of people are saying, and I had no idea what that WATP was till, I think, yeah, a couple people I talked to, like this Adam Thoreau and Mint Salad, these two, like, YouTubers, that I wanted to interview. They were like, "Oh, hey, you just got big there. You're hilarious," and I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know what that is."
Yeah, yeah, I do like calls. Who are these podcasts? And it was interesting because I was listening to the episode where they featured you, and I was like, okay, where's Carl going to go with this? Because this guy's kind of funny. That's what I was thinking. Um, and I could tell he was kind of, in my opinion, he was kind of couldn't hate it. That's the way I got from it.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't realize that there was like a show that roasted, podcasts. And then, yeah, when I heard it, I thought it was hilarious. Taking what I was saying and make it even funnier, because they're kind of putting like real, like, oh, you shouldn't feel this way, you shouldn't. But yeah, no, it added to it even more, the stories that I told.
Like Carl always has his producer or other people to bounce stuff off of, and he's really good at it. But they can get really dark with their humor and do it in a funny voice or do it in the guise of a joke where you're just by yourself pulling this stuff out of your head, and they're like, "Well, I don't know about that, but it's funny."
Yeah, and I was saying, I don't know if I heard them saying, "Oh, well, is this made up? Is it a character?" And I would say I don't know, it's just me.
Yeah, exactly. You are one of the few to not get roasted on that show, and I don't mind the roasting because I feel like his roasting is valid. I think
Oh yeah,
more than likely he's right.
yeah. No, it's hilarious. So even with his, I wouldn't even call it criticisms of me. He was just kind
Mhm.
of like roasting me. It was hilarious.
Well, you're doing a great job. So let's get to this is my first episode of Fuck It, We'll Do It Live. Did you see that
Mhm.
clip I sent you?
Yeah, no, I remember that when he gets all pissed off.
Yeah, I love that. I love that clip. So that's what I want to name the show. And I notice in your transitions, you'll just do a song. You'll just start singing. Sometimes it's early, your throat's dry, you hit a cracky note, but and it's funny, and you make that funny. And sometimes you actually hit some good notes. But I heard you do a Slipknot song.
Yeah, yeah. I did grow up in high school listening to a lot of that music, and some of it stuck with me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, okay, okay. This guy, he likes female pop, which I like, by the way. And then he likes Slipknot. So I asked you beforehand to send heavy album CDs releases. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through them. So I'm going to pop them up on the screen. Limp Bizkit.
Chocolate starfish, the hot dog flavored water.
I want to get into your head. What made you choose this?
I want to say that was the very first album I ever bought that was like uncensored. Because back
Mm,
then, when I lived in a small town, you had only Walmart to shop at, and they only had censored albums.
mhm.
And so I remember having to go out of town to a Best Buy, and I bought that was like the very first album I ever bought that was uncensored, and yeah, it just sticks with me.
Yeah, I saw Limp Bizkit at this place called Barristers, and it's literally in an alley in downtown Memphis. Um, and it was awesome.
They seemed like a good live show, especially back when they were still coming up.
Have you ever seen the movie Judgment Night?
No, cannot say I have.
Okay, it's probably early 90s movie. I'm gonna link all this stuff and do playlists, but it's Emilio Estevez and Dennis Leary, and Dennis Leary is the bad guy, and it's essentially Dennis Leary chasing Emilio Estevez through this deserted town, trying to kill him. I can't remember why. And there's a soundtrack to it, called Judgment Night, the soundtrack,
Mhm.
and it took metal bands and rap bands, and they collaborated on songs. My favorite one personally is Faith No More with the Booyah Tribe, Another Body Murdered. I'm gonna put that song in the playlist.
I know there's an album I really like too, and it's like a rock rap collaboration called Loud Rocks. If you've ever heard
Okay.
of that.
I have not, but I will look
And
into it.
if you look at it's a compilation of different rappers and rockers, and I know the very first song it has some where they're mixed together and some
Hmm.
where they actually do a new song. And the first song on there is a collab of System of a Down and Wu-Tang.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, called Shame, and that song's great. They have some collabs of man, Ozzy Osbourne and I think Exhibit. They have a lot of rap good artists on that one. That's really good. Loud Rocks.
And I'm glad you said that because I've not heard of that,
Yeah.
and I'm going to put it in our playlist related to
Yeah.
this episode. So, well, I'm going to go into the second one, System of a Down.
Oh yeah, Toxicity.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, that was like a big one in high school too. Like really got me into the heavier side of music when I was still listening to I would say like 90s cassettes. Like I would still listen to my sister's stuff because my older sister was the one that basically was able to buy music, so I would listen to whatever she had there. And once
Hmm.
I like got into System of a Down from school, it was like, okay, let me check these other bands out, like Marilyn Manson or Slipknot, stuff like that. But I want to say System of a Down was the one where I'm like, man, this is kind of different because all the other ones were a lot of screaming, and System of a Down, he kind of sang a little bit more melodic and stuff. And I don't know, I still listen to them to this day, very, very much so.
That record influenced a lot of people and brought a lot of people into metal.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Uh-oh. Ooh. I got a kid on the other side of the door, man.
Okay, you're good.
This is my stuttering John moment. All right.
You're good.
All right. Screw it. We'll do it live. Let's go to number 3, Gwar. I noticed yesterday in this podcast, I believe you mentioned the documentary This Is Gwar.
Yeah, it was really good. And I do like War. It's just a fun show. I've been to their show like 6 times, their live show, and it's just a fun show, even though I probably only know one or two of their songs. Uh, and watching the documentary reminded me a lot of going to those shows, and then how the lead singer passed away and
Yeah,
they
Dave
brought in the
Brockie.
other. Yeah. So it was touching for a documentary, but
Mhm,
also I had a lot of memories going to different shows and
mhm.
seeing Gore with different people, and it was always a good show. You would never be disappointed.
Yeah, I have seen him a few times. I've probably seen him more than I can remember, honestly. I do remember some parts in their live shows that were just super offensive.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
saw I saw one where was it at Eagle Pass, I think, where they had a do like a figurine or whatever they do, they chop him up, but it was
Mhm.
of George Bush.
Yeah, that
Right
kind
when he was in office, and the security guards there were like disgusted watching it
mhm.
happen. They were like, what are we here for? You know, and it was great.
You know, and Dave Brocky, that guy was an artistic, I would say, genius.
And it was a touching documentary of remembering him. You know,
I would say if I was going to put something related to war in this playlist, it's going to be every year. Where were they from? Were they from somewhere on the East Coast, right?
man,
Virginia or something, Richmond, Virginia, I think maybe.
maybe,
But they would do a hometown show, and they would call it. It was reverse war, I believe. It was RAWG,
yeah,
ROG or something, and it's
yeah,
them without the uniform. They're just playing their songs like punk rock style.
yeah, like a cover band.
Yeah, and it is awesome.
Yeah,
It is just it's a great show. It's on YouTube. I remember watching it. The entire show is just them without the makeup, and they're just jamming, and it is good. Dave Brocky
yeah.
is on. You know,
He's a great singer, mysteriously enough.
he is. I really like the first one, Scumdogs of the Universe. It's always been my favorite. He reminds me of a heavy metal David Lee Roth as far as his voice goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he can sing that like jazz type music too.
So I also asked you to send me non-metal albums. So let's get into that.
From Marina the Diamonds, Electra Heart. I don't know, like as far as Marina the Diamonds go nowadays, I've seen her live, and I just think she's like the best as far as vocalist, musical writing,
hmm
female pop. You know, but that's I wouldn't call myself biased. It's just kind of all I listen to at the moment.
I really like what you picked because a lot of them made me think. And this one made me think a little bit. Like, and it's only because we have different experiences. I just haven't been exposed to her or her music. You know, like for some reason she just never came on my radar. So I'm like, how did you hear about this?
First came of her, you know, in the grocery store when you're hearing the music in the speaker.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember kept like I work in a grocery store, so I would keep hearing her one song over and over again.
hmm
And at first it was like, oh, this is annoying. I hear it all the time. And then I was like, man, and the song was man, what was it on her list? It was either it was Prima Donna Girl. And at first it's like, I don't really like this, it's annoying, but then it grows on you, and I'm like, I want to listen, see what else she sings. And then I just got into her whole albums of everything, and it was good. I don't know, it was good enough. And then she happened to be touring at that same time, so when I saw her live, it was everything. It's like, man, she's perfect.
So have you heard the new Taylor Swift song called Anti-Hero?
I heard her album, it was okay.
hmm
I I like some of her songs, not really her whole albums.
But have you heard that song called
I'm pre-
Anti-Hero?
I'm pretty sure I have. I can't recall how it goes, but
It sounds like I haven't heard any of the album, but I did hear this song because that must be the single they're playing on the radio, and it had like an 80s synthwave sound to me. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if the whole album was like that, but kind of like what The Weeknd's been doing. It kind of just it's like modern day 80s synth, you know,
Yeah,
kind of. It's got a strong sense of that.
and again, it was all right as far as Taylor Swift goes.
Mhm.
I think she's overrated with pop stuff.
You know, I remember seeing a performance she did live maybe 10 years ago. She was much younger, but it was just her and an acoustic guitar on an award show, and it was really good. I was impressed. I was
Yeah,
impressed.
and I think that I wouldn't say she's lost that. I'm sure
hmm
she could still want to do that, but her fans want to hear different stuff from her, and I'm guessing that's it. They don't want to hear her roots where she was just like a country singer, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that because it just, like I said, the song to me, it just sounds like a style of music and not necessarily Taylor Swift. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, she's getting whatever's trending.
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So I don't
ju-
blame her.
it's catchy though. It's
Oh yeah.
catchy.
Yeah. No, it's a good listen to, but it's nothing I would put on my playlist.
Mhm. Good deal. So now is Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
Oh yeah, and I think I don't know, that to me that's like the perfect, I guess you'd call, rap album.
hmm
Despite all the controversies he's going through right now,
hmm
I always tell everyone to separate the art from the artist.
I agree.
I know me personally, I'm sure I would want to separate me from my own art if that ever occurs. But yeah, he just knows how to make music. He knows how to write it, and that album is, I think, perfect too, as far as rap is concerned. And
Hmm.
I'm not a huge rap fan, but yeah, that one is just great. I know his next one he did, Yeezus, where
Hmm.
it was a lot harder, was something different too, but this one is just perfect as far as production and everything on it. I think it's a great album.
There's something about Kanye. I can never identify his voice because he always has so many guests in his
Mhm.
songs. Like I don't know which one's him. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who say this work here is a genius masterpiece right here.
Yeah, as far as if you look at all his albums, this one is, it looked like he put everything into it. And I think it was right when like his mother passed away or something. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of that in it too.
Like you, I'm not I do appreciate rap and I do like rap. I'm a Generation X fan of rap, but I do
Mhm.
keep up with what's going on out there. And like you said, it's hard to distinguish who's who unless you're really into it. But the ones that stick with me, I think, cross over better because I recognize their voice.
Yeah, nowadays it's, I don't know. There are not really any stars. It's just like music. I don't know. I don't know how to say it with these artists nowadays, but I know I'll listen to some artists that are presently making music, and it's more songs that'll jump out to me rather than actual whole artists or whole albums.
Have you heard of Juicy
Mm.
J?
Yeah, from 3 6 Mafia.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, when you hear Juicy J, it is just the embodiment of rap, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, I mean, shit, he won what, a Grammy for that?
Yeah, for the
Yeah,
soundtrack in that movie,
yeah,
I
that's
believe. Yeah.
crazy. Back when you didn't win, rappers didn't win Grammys.
No, and they're from Memphis, and I'm here in Memphis. Like most of my videos
Mhm.
are just driving around here filming while I talk about stuff. But yeah, Juicy J and the 3 6 Mafia are from Memphis, and that's a big rallying cry for Memphians. Like we don't have an NFL team. We do have the Memphis Grizzlies in the NBA, and we have 3 6 Mafia.
Pretty sure you have barbecue sauce too or something.
Yeah, yeah, barbecue and all the other stuff. But yeah, Juicy J, and I mean, he made that Katy Perry song "Dark Horse" so
Hmm.
good. Don't you
Hmm.
love that part when he
Oh
comes
yeah,
in?
yeah. No, it makes the song. It makes it separates it from all the other Katy Perry songs, and I do like Katy Perry very much.
Well, look, Lorenzo, I got about 3 minutes left. Let's go to the last one, Angus and Julia Stone, and you picked the album "Down the Way."
And
What
yeah,
made
it's
you
just
What made you pick that?
it,
How'd you hear that?
well, I remember playing the game. There's a video game, Life is Strange, and it's a nice story-based, slow game. No, no, not really action-based, just story. And
Hmm.
they had a great soundtrack within that game. One of the songs in that soundtrack was from this album. It
Hmm.
was called Santa Monica Dreams, and it's just a slow little ballad of the brother and sister singing. And this whole album is just, I don't know, it really connects me to that, where it's just nice and soothing and kind of where I want to be at now, with especially with the anxiety and everything, where I just want to be calm,
Hmm.
relax, and just listen to melodies or real soft and slow music.
I think that's a good place to end. We started, early on. We kind of touched on the anxiety. We could finish on how music soothes your anxiety.
Hmm.
I'm, passionate about music, and I know you are too, based on your podcast. I hope you get some subscriptions from this.
Oh,
But
I love it. Yeah.
but if not, it was fun to do, and I think you just made your mark on the musical landscape, sir.
Thanks for having me, man. It was fun just chit chatting about everything.
All right, Lorenzo, take care, and I'll
All
talk to
right.
you later.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.